I'm Sarah Canney, and this is my live Instagram show, Showing Up, Courageous Conversations with Women Who Are Following Their Heart. Hi everyone, welcome to Showing Up, which is my live Instagram show. And I am Sarah Canney. I am the author of the blog RunFarGirl.com, and I am also the founder and host of the women's running retreat, Rise.Run.Retreat. And I go live every Wednesday at noon, and I bring on women who are really following their heart and making their ideas become reality. And it's really been fun to chat with so many different women who are doing different things in entirely different fields, and really kind of lift the curtain, I guess, so to speak, on what it takes to start your own business and do your own thing, and some of the obstacles that you face along the way, and the inner critic, and how you overcome those and actually keep pressing into what it is that you want to accomplish. So this is episode 9, which is kind of fun. We've done 9 of these live episodes, and today I am bringing on Erin Holt, and Erin is a holistic and functional nutritionist. She is also the host of the podcast Functional Nutrition, and she meets with clients one-on-one. She also has several online courses, and she's someone who I respect because I know that she is reading the research. She is doing the work behind the scenes so that what she tells her clients and what she sort of presents in a workshop is just spot on. So she has been a guest presenter at Rise.Run.Retreat, and I know that the women who were there really benefited from everything that she had to say. And so I'm really excited to have her on. And we're going to chat business, but also maybe get into a little chat about just what exactly functional nutrition is, what exactly is holistic nutrition. So hi, Erin. Thanks for having me.
Oh, this is the first time I've done an Instagram live like this with a split screen.
I know.
To being on a mic, less used to being on camera.
Yeah, takes a little getting used to, and sometimes like live is interesting because anything can go wrong. So I've had some technical difficulties, but we always just kind of push through and figure it out and keep going. So
awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, I was kind of talking a little bit about what you do as I was introducing you in terms of like you're a holistic and functional nutritionist. But for someone who has no idea what that means, why don't you tell us exactly what it is and kind of what you do?
So functional nutrition, it's steeped in functional medicine, and it's really all about looking for the root cause of what's going on. So my practice has evolved. I've been doing this for 8 years now, and it has evolved over the years, like businesses do. And primarily the women that I'm working with now have these long-standing health like mysteries, and they've been going to their physicians for years and not getting any answers. Like they get the blood work done, they get all the things done, and they're just kind of like pushed aside or even laughed out of the office. Like nothing's wrong with you. Like this is normal. Women are being told all the time that like feeling subpar, feeling like just okay is normal. And so by the time people get to me, they're like kind of spun out. They're burnt out. They think something's wrong with them. They think they're hypochondriacs. They think everything is going on. It's just like inside their head. And through functional lab testing, through intake forms, through the old school art of listening, like actually listening to their stories and what's going on with them, we're able to piece together, underlying stuff and address those underlying things. So, it was really helpful for me and instrumental for me. I got sick a few years ago. My daughter's almost 5, and after she was born, I started getting really, really sick. And that was my experience. I was going around to all my doctors, all my practitioners, and just hearing that same old song and dance routine of like, nothing's really wrong with you. So I was really ashamed. I was really embarrassed. I'm like, why can't I just get my shit together? Like, what the hell's going on? And it turns out that I had an autoimmune disease going on, scleroderma. And it wasn't until I was able to be my own advocate and really demand answers that I felt anybody actually paid attention to me. So I just kind of want to help women not have to go through that experience if I can.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you get, I mean, you mentioned being sick and kind of wanting to advocate for yourself and, you know, but how did you kind of, what was your track into this field? Like, how did you get into this?
Well, we have to back up a bit, and it started with a lot of dysfunction and disorder. I battled eating disorders for 15 years, and I got to the point where I was like, I gotta fix myself. I have to help myself, right? And so I went to school to become a registered dietitian. So that's what my degree is in, nutrition and dietetics. And while I'm very, very grateful for that education because it taught me a lot of the science and the requisite knowledge, like if you're going to be putting yourself on a platform to speak about food, to speak about nutrition, to speak about health, you have like baseline, you need to have a firm understanding of the human body. Like if you don't, you gotta get out of the kitchen, let the adults talk. So I'm grateful that it gave me that like deep understanding of anatomy, physiology, nutritional biochemistry, all that kind of stuff. It was just applying that information that was a little bit tricky. I left school, I graduated, and my eating behaviors weren't improved. In fact, my eating disorder was at an all-time high. So I knew that I had to pivot a little bit and figure out my own answers. And so I started to explore more holistic health modalities. I became a health coach on top of being a nutritionist. I studied yoga. I became a yoga teacher. I just started doing my own thing. And that was what led me away from the eating disorder, kind of taking the focus off of food and putting the focus on every other aspect of my life. And that's really how I started my nutrition practice, was doing more basic, holistic nutrition, helping people acknowledge that it was more than just food, right? And just cleaning up their diets. And then it wasn't until I got sick that I started to dip my toe into the whole world of functional medicine and dramatically change the way that I practice from there. It was sort of out of necessity because I wasn't getting answers. I'm like, I got to fix myself again.
So at what point did this turn from something that you were kind of applying to yourself and had more of a focus on yourself to something where you're like, okay, this could actually be a viable business and I want to make this like my source of income? Like where was that shift? When did that happen and how did it happen?
You know, I think there are a lot of different shifts along the way. One of the biggest, I'll never forget this, in terms of like, what am I actually going to do for a career? I remember my senior year in college going to one of my advisors and saying like, here's what I'm super passionate about. Here's what I want to help people with. Here's what I want to do, like how I want to work. And she sat back and she's like, that career doesn't exist. Am I back on?
Yeah, you're fine.
I put it on do not disturb, and it still disturbed me.
Oh.
So anyway, so she just told me that career didn't exist. And I knew in that moment, I was like, oh, that I have to create it myself. And I think that's, my friend always jokes, Kyle, actually, my podcast host, she's like, you could be in the woods and you could see like a very clearly defined path. And then you can see like right next to it, all of this brush. And you're like, give me the machete, I'm going trailblazing. And I can't explain that. I don't know. I think it was just something I was born with and something I continued to cultivate. But I've always sort of like danced to the beat of my own drum. I've always sort of done things my way. And this was just one of those situations where it's like, I don't want to be put into a box. I don't want to practice this way. Conventional medicine isn't, in conventional nutrition, they're not getting us the results that we're after. We're a nation of sick people. So I didn't want to keep doing that. So it was time to change. And that I'm a big person. Like if something isn't working in my life or in my career or in any aspect of my life, I'm going to change it. I'm not going to sit around and talk about how I don't like it. I'm not going to get stuck in that story. And I think a lot of us do that. We kind of like tell ourselves that the obstacles we face are so insurmountable, and we like live by those beliefs as though they're truths. And I'm just not about that. I'm like, all right, how can I change this so I can fix it?
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I can't not say this, that attitude comes with a lot of privilege, right? Like I have a lot of privilege in my life. I'm not denying that. I want to acknowledge that as much as I can. And all that means is that like there's obstacles that I've had to overcome in my life, right? And there's obstacles that I've had to overcome to get to where I am in my career. But there are many obstacles that I have not had to overcome. And that's all that privilege is talking about. But, you know, I've had a lot of support and a lot of people that have cheered me on along the way. And that's really huge and profound.
So what do you think it is that, because I'm so interested in that like moment of deciding to change, like, because like you said, a lot of us will see the obstacle as insurmountable and we'll just step back and be like, well, I'm just not going to go that way, or I'm going to find a different way. So what do you think it is that really allows change to come about, or helps us take the first step into change? Like, what do you think it is from your own personal experience? Like, what is it that helps you step into that discomfort? Because obviously change and like pursuing something that has some obstacles in it is going to be uncomfortable.
I think for me, it's two things. One is like, I'm okay being uncomfortable. I'm okay with like being in the discomfort and being like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. It's time to change. I don't want to sit in that discomfort. So I'm going to change, right? I'm going to like effectively change that. But for me, it's like, I know that my message is more important than my fear, right? That like what I have to say needs to be said. I have to have a platform. I have to build a platform because I look around and I see all of this dysfunction in the food world. I look around and I see all this dysfunction in medicine and in diet culture. I have to change that. Like I was put on this planet to do something with that. Like I've struggled a lot. There's a point to that struggle. So I know that, and I know that to be true without a doubt. So I have to, when I get to those points of discomfort, when I get to those points of like growing, it feels scary. It feels scary for all of us. But my sort of internal dialogue is like, the message is more important than the fear. So like you have to be, it's okay to be afraid, but you still have to do it anyway, you know? And like, I think that's really what courage is all about, isn't it? Like, it's not like we're not afraid. We don't have the fear. It's like, we have the fear, we experience it, and we're still willing to do it anyway. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is the things that I used to view as my Achilles heel, like the things that I thought that people told me were wrong about me. I've learned to see that they're actually my superpowers. Specifically body stuff. I've always had health issues since I was a baby. I always get injured more than the average person. I just have like random stuff pops up all the time, and that has always made me feel very ashamed about myself and about my body and really not understanding it. And now I'm able to see like, that's my body's way of communicating with me. That's my body's way of saying things aren't right. Things aren't exactly right. You might use the word like alignment. I think that's a big one in like the wellness space right now. I'm not aligned. My body has a way of telling me. I'm a very like logical person. I spend a lot of time in my brain. And so sometimes I forget that it's important to drop in and like, what's my whole being tell me? So that's one of the ways that my body communicates with me. It's like giving me, you know, a foot injury or like giving me a panic attack. It's like these things that I'm like, okay, now it's actually time to pay attention to the messages that are coming through. The other thing is anger. I've always been a super angry person. I used to get in fights when I was younger. Like I've just been like, my husband and my daughter call it my dragon rage. Like I get ragey. And that was another thing that I was always told was bad. It's not a feminine trait. Be softer, be more gentle. How could you do this in a more gentle way? And now I'm like, dude, my anger gets shit done. If I'm pissed, I'm going to do something. I'm going to change something. If I'm mad, it's because I'm looking around and I'm seeing injustice in the world, and I'm going to do everything in my power to change that injustice. So it's just like a lot of internal work, honestly, to just get through it, right? We all have that fear. We all have that discomfort that you're talking about. It's just like, what are you willing to do to get past it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so key to take like a lot of aspects of your personality that people have pointed out in the past that have been cast in a negative light, and really flipping that and seeing if you can harness those things to really propel you forward. Um, so are there daily practices or rituals or habits that you have to do that sort of internal work to like keep moving you forward in a positive way?
Yes, I have a lot. I've learned this, like the older I get, I'm 35 now, the older I get, the more I learn how much downtime I need. And by downtime, I mean alone time. Like I need radical space, so much time to myself in order to regenerate and recharge. That's one thing, is just acknowledging like what I actually need and giving myself the permission to take that. I have other practices like journaling every day, meditation, movement, nature, all of those things are must haves. But I would say the biggest and potentially the most profound thing that I do is protecting my energy and my time by saying no to people, like a lot. And this is like, a lot of women will be like, but I'm not good at that. I'm like, yeah, no shit. We've been conditioned to not be good at that, right? Like we've been told our entire lives that everybody else's needs and emotions and feelings are far more important than our own. And so we give ourselves up all the time to just make sure everybody, to keep the peace, right? Make sure everybody else is comfortable. Well, I can't say no to that person because that'll hurt their feelings. That'll disappoint them. And there came a time where I had to make a switch where I'm like, I have to protect my energy, my time in order to do the things that I need to do and want to do. Like if I'm giving my time out to every single person that asks, I'm taking time away from my family, away from myself, my healthcare, my work. So that, I would say that is a big one, being super selective with where my time goes and being willing and able to say no. And I will say one thing that has been a very, something I've had to learn how to do. And at first it was so hard and it felt like it was like going to be the end of me, and it gets easier. But I noticed that as I was saying no, I was also saying sorry. So for example, I have a lot of people that will reach out to me through email or social media or the podcast or whatever, and ask me for advice, like medical advice. And so one of my like kind of stock responses is like, I cannot give medical advice through email or, the internet. But I noticed that I was saying, I'm sorry, but I can't do this. And there came a point in time where I'm like, why am I apologizing? Like, I don't have to apologize. I didn't do anything wrong. And I think that's another thing that we do as women, is like, we're constantly apologizing for just like existing, or for setting a boundary, or for saying, this is what I need. Like, I need this, but I'm sorry for needing that. And so that's like another thing that's just been gone. Like,
Yeah.
no more sorries, just this is what I need, and doing it unapologetically.
Yeah. I think that foundation of just self-love, and I know it's such a buzzword, but self-care,
Yeah.
um, is so important, because how can you pursue your passion? How can you impact other people's lives? How can you serve unless you're first taking care of yourself? Like, it's this fundamental thing that we as women, somehow we just keep skipping over it and we're like not getting it. But I think like, I just love when women talk passionately about putting themselves first, because I think it is so, so important.
I think it's really hard though, the self-care thing. It's like, because sometimes that in and of itself is like, can feel overwhelming to people, or to women, because we're like, I'm already doing so much. How can I possibly take on one more thing? Like, how can I go to the yoga class? How can I go for a walk? How can I do the things that I know that I need to do? How can I do them when I'm so strung out? And I think that's where I think that the first step is to learn how to say no to people. It's like, look at your to-do list. What are the things that you hate doing? Stop doing them. Delegate it. Obviously there are things that we have to do, but I just hired a cleaning lady this week. I'm like, I'm done. I can't be scrubbing toilets. Yes, that was huge. That was a long time in the making.
Yeah.
But like, stuff like that. What do you
Yeah.
hate doing, right? Like, see what you can let go of. Because the fact of the matter is, it's like, yeah, we all have to take care of ourselves, but how are we supposed to take care of ourselves when we have 0 seconds to ourselves every single day? Like, you have to make space. You do. You have to make space. Nobody's going to come up to you and just like deliver an extra hour on a silver platter. That will literally never happen. So like, you have to make the space. And in order to do that, it's going to require you saying no to things. So just like talk about getting comfortable in discomfort. Like, that's a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I keep revisiting. Like, I'm always learning that I have to say no. And it's usually after I've said yes. And then like, stress starts to come in. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta say no.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah. So along the way, I know that it can be really tough to kind of be on your own, be self-employed, doing your own thing. Do you have any mentors or people who, colleagues who you look to for encouragement or advice, who kind of come alongside you in your sort of business journey, who've kind of helped you out?
Yes, thank God. Because I mean, for so long, I just kind of was like going blind for so many years. And I think there's like, you do need that internal drive, right? You need that self-motivation. If you don't have it, you can't start a business. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but that's just the fact of the matter. I know like the anti-hustle movement is huge right now. I don't know one single person running a successful business who's not grinding and not hustling. So like, that's cool. That's like really postable and Instagram worthy. It's not actually the truth. Like, you have to work your ass off. Somebody said to me, being in business for yourself is like getting punched in the face every single day. And I'm like, that sounds about right. But I do have, so like the first thing is like, you just have to be able to do the work. Like, you can't be reaching outside of yourself all the time. Like, a lot of people reach out to me and be like, I want to do what you do. Where do I start? I'm like, the fact that you're emailing me to ask where to start is a good indication that you're not going to make it. Move on. Like, you have to do it yourself. Start yourself, but then build out a team of people. I absolutely have, several colleagues, and like my circle is small, you know, because like time and energy and all of that. Sarah Curry, who owns Blaze Yoga and Pilates, is one of them. Emily McGuisick, I almost called her by her maiden name, who owns Steam House in Epping, is another one. Kyle, my podcast host, is amazing. She's super helpful. I have a lot of people. Kendallin is another one that I reach out to on a daily basis, so I don't feel as isolated, and can also like bounce ideas off of, and like, you know, all that kind of stuff. And my husband's another huge person. He is not a man of many words. So when he does say something, it's like, okay, you gotta listen. He's gonna drop some gold. But they're saying this to anybody who's starting in the beginning stages. We were on our honeymoon. It was like one of the last nights, and I just started feel like such a failure. This was probably like year 2 of my business, maybe. And like, I feel like such a failure because things aren't happening as quickly as I thought they should be. And, you know, I'm still doing this, and I'm still working a side job, and I'm not doing it full time, like all the things. And he just looked at me and he's like, this is what starting a business is like. Like, this is it. You're doing it. He's like, you've been consistently growing. It's small growth, but it's consistent. That's what you need to do. And it's like one of those conversations that I'll just never forget, because it was so true. And it was so like such the support that I needed. Because he easily could have been like, yeah, like make some more money, like throw in the towel, like let's get this show on the road. What's going on? He's like, no, give yourself all the time and the space that you need, because it's going to take time, and it's going to take patience, and it's going to take hard work and consistency. So I'm wicked lucky that like my, you know, my numero uno is as supportive as he is, because that's important too. Yeah. Did that even answer your question?
Yeah. So yeah, made me think about this idea of breakthrough. Like, everyone wants like the breakthrough, like super successful, instant, like off the ground and running kind of thing. Yeah. And like thinking about all the years, the small steps, the small progress that goes into a breakthrough. You know, and I always think about it in running terms, like training for, you know, a big race or something like that. But my husband and I were talking about it because he's been in business, he's self-employed, he's been in business for 10 years. And like, this is his 10th year, and things are like finally starting to like go, you know? And so a lot of people see like what's happening
10 years.
Year. Yeah.
10 years. Things are going now.
Yeah. 10 years to get to what's happening now, to get to the breakthrough. And I think so often everyone starts paying attention when you break through, when you've achieved, when you have success, and nobody really sees what's gone on behind the scenes for, you know, for you for 8 years, for my husband, 10 years. Like, I've been blogging for 9 years. Like, you know, like there's a lot of like stuff that has gone on.
And I'm sure people are like, hey, Sarah, how do I get 23,000 followers on Instagram? You're like, work your ass off for 9 years.
Yeah, there's no secret. So it's just, yeah, I mean, and the anti-hustle sort of vibe that's kind of going around now, it's like, I mean, you can hustle and still be happy. Like, you don't have to hustle and be stressed out and strung out. Like, you can hustle and find that work-life balance. So, you know, in the last 8 years that you've been building your business and hustling and working hard and putting in the work, like, how do you find that balance and between like the hustle and the taking care of yourself and making time for the people who are important in your life?
I'm still looking for the balance. I haven't found it yet. I'll be super honest. I wish I had like something really great to say, but I haven't found it yet. There like sometimes it's all business and my family kind of drops by the wayside and my health kind of drops by the wayside, and then I have to course correct, and it's kind of like a constant juggling act. The tricky part about it is like, you know, when people are like, well, what makes you happy? Like, working really makes me happy. I am my most alive when I'm creating something, when I have my hands dirty, you know, knee deep in a project. That's when I feel my most best, happiest self. And so that's great. Like, lucky me, how wonderful that is. But it's also like the downside of that is like I can work too much and I can kind of spin myself out and burn myself out. And I am certainly no stranger to burnout. So it's a constant check, and that's where the body stuff comes into play. I used to be like, oh my God, I'm run down again. What, I am having an autoimmune flare again. What's the matter? Why can't I get myself together? But instead it's like, oh, that's just like a gentle reminder for my body that like, hey, it's too much for you. Like, it's too much for your physiology. Slow down. So it's constantly just, you know, checks and balances all the time. You know, if my husband's like, you're working too much, like, that's a good indication that I'm working too much, you know, stuff like that. I think sometimes that's where our team, like our, you know, the team that you were talking about, like our support team can come into play and be like, hey, I know you can't see this for yourself, so I'm going to hold up a mirror, you know, and like let you know it's too much for you right now. So the balance thing, it's tricky. I'm still looking for it.
Yeah. And I don't know that balance is, I don't know that we can achieve balance. Like, I always like to think of it as an ebb and flow, and like seasons of this and seasons of that. And you just sort of move in and out of the seasons of your life where, like you said, work is the focus and then maybe family is the focus. And I think that if you look at it more as an ebb and flow and something that's sort of in flux all the time, then you're not trying to achieve this like everything's balanced, all the balls are being juggled, you know, and it's, you've arrived. I don't know that
Yeah,
there's
and I
ever
think you're
arrived.
the fact that, you know, like, work is cyclical, our bodies are cyclical. It takes a lot of the pressure off, and it also decreases that negative self-talk and being really hard on ourselves about like, why can't I get to this together? It's just more like, oh, I'm in this cycle right now. You know, I know like around the holidays, for example, like I work less, and that's more of like a family situation. Summer, same deal. You know, like there's times where I have to like kind of flex in and flex out, and just being okay with that, knowing that's part of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also knowing you're not going to be irrelevant. You're not going to just become irrelevant overnight. I think when some people get locked into their business and they're like, I have all this momentum going, I have to keep going. Like, you can take a step back and like jump back in. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think sometimes that can be really hard for sort of people with an entrepreneurial mindset, is to be okay to take a step back and know that all the pieces aren't going to fall apart and, you know, everything's going to come to a screeching halt, that things will still be there when you come back. So yeah.
I'll share this because it's like, it's easy to talk about this stuff in theory, but I'll share this because it actually happened last summer. I had just finished a program. I'm like always in school. I'm never not in school. Like, I'm a psychopath. So I had just finished a program. I think it was like May, and I'm like, I'm burnt out because I was in school working, like, you know, momming, all the things. And I was like, I think, you know, my body's telling me that I need to take a break. Like, I want 2 months off from working. And so that's a scary thing when you run your own business, to just like say that and like claim that and hold to it. So I did it. And around the same time, there was some major restructuring at my husband's company, and there was a big career change for him. And I was like, I feel like this is a test, because like financially, like, I'm not going to work, and there's going to be a gap of time where he's not working, and they're overlapping. Like, that's really stressful, but I'm going to have to trust myself on this. and I'm just going to do it anyway. Despite the fear, I'm going to do it anyway. And we had like the greatest summer of all time. Like it was awesome. We enjoyed it. We could have like really freaked out and been like, holy God, this is so stressful. Instead, we're like, let's really enjoy this time.
Right.
And it was like, from a business standpoint, I had created all this space and all this mental white space to like let the next thing come in. And it was almost like my next program, I run online nutrition programs, was just like downloaded to me. Like within a week, I was like, this is my next thing. And I put it into action and it freaking sold out within a week. And it was like amazing. And I was, you have to like listen. You have to take breaks. You have to give yourself rest. You have to listen to when your body and your, soul or whatever you want to call it is telling you things, because it's saying those things for a reason. So
yeah. Yeah, my husband and I have this phrase where it's always take the trip. So we've had situations where like we've had a trip planned, whether it's to go to a wedding or something. We've had a trip planned. And then like, because we're both self-employed, some financial something comes up, some stressful something comes up right before this trip. And we're like, well, should we cancel the trip? Should we deal with this financial thing or whatever it is? And we, over the last like probably 5 to 7 years, we've decided that like we're just always going to take the trip, because what you just explained, we've experienced over and over again, is that you go away, you get yourself out of this like stressful cesspool into a space of mental clarity, you take a little mental break, and you come back and suddenly you have answers to all those questions, all those stressful situations, you have new ideas, you feel refreshed, like you're just on a different, your re-entry is on a different level than your exit was. And so I think it's so important to take a step back, to like hustle, work hard, but also give yourself permission to step back and get perspective. Because a lot of times you're right, that's when your big ideas come, so.
Yeah. It's hard for your next big idea to come in when you're like so stressed and like burnt out. It's like, it just doesn't happen. We all know that it doesn't happen.
Yeah. So how do you, you mentioned that you're always in school and I know that you're always reading like the current research. How do you stay fresh and passionate about an industry that's, and a topic that's always changing? Like there's always like new trends and stuff. So how do you stay fresh?
I think I say fresh because it is always changing. Like our understanding, I don't really give a shit about the trends. Like let the trends, whatever. I don't really care too much about them. I love to demystify and dismantle trends and fads and myths and all that kind of stuff. But, our understanding of the human body changes almost daily. Like we are just learning so much more about ourselves. And so I feel like I don't have a choice. If I want to put myself in the position of an expert and I want to, create this platform and educate about this stuff and take clients on and have this practice, I need to understand the current research. If I don't, I have no business being here. So I think it's a requisite of the job. I can't do the work that I'm doing without doing this as well. And to be honest with you, education and research takes up the bulk of my time. That's where I spend the majority of my time, which is very different than modern day wellness. It's the bulk of time is spent on marketing and how loud can I be and how glamorous can I make this look and how beautiful can I make my platform and how much of a lifestyle can I brand. And I think that does a huge disservice to the field of nutrition. This is like a funny story, but last week I taught a workshop at Blaze Yoga in Portsmouth. And the week before I was taking a class there, and there's a flyer of me. And I was waiting in line for the shower, and some guy was like, "Oh, is that you on the on the flyer?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You're a nutritionist?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "So do you do that full time or what?" And I'm like, what a weird question to ask somebody. Like if somebody was like, "I'm a dentist, I'm a lawyer," would you be like, "So do you is this your side hustle or like what do you do? What do you do with the rest of your time?" It was so weird, but I think it really speaks to like the field of nutrition and how sort of like sullied it's become, because you can have anybody with a freaking Instagram handle or a blog talking about nutrition. And so I think people have really lost a lot of trust in nutritionists and in the whole profession. And so it was just sort of an interesting thing to see. And I think it's important, you know, education is so important to me. And I think that in this day and age where we're like, you know, we're so overwhelmed with food information, so overwhelmed with nutrition information, and we're really like, who do I trust? Like, you know, one expert says one thing, another expert says another thing. Everybody's so overwhelmed. It's not really like we don't have enough information. It's almost like we have too much information, and we've lost the ability to say, like, does this apply to me? So when people are like, well, who should I trust? I think that there's two really important things to look at. Education is one of them. Like, do they actually have the qualifications to say the things that they're saying? That is so important, right? And then the other one is experience, because you could study all day long, but if you're not applying that theory and that information to actual living human bodies, you don't really know. It's like theory's one thing, practice is another. You know, it's like teachers come out of, or we come out of school and we're like, okay, we have all these protocols, and if this, then this, and if this, then this. And then you actually work with somebody and you're like, oh my God, the protocols don't work. Like, now I have to think critically. Like, oh God. So, you know, I think that, you know, I think that's super important.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was my first year. You know, my degree is in English teaching. I was a high school English teacher. What you learn in school compared to your experience in the classroom are like two totally different things. Yeah.
And if you have yoga teachers that are watching this, like, they can appreciate this. It's like going through yoga teacher training and then teaching your first live class, and you're looking around the room and you're like, why is nobody doing the words that are coming out of my mouth? Like, no bodies are reciprocating. It's so hard, but it's like, you just got to get that experience under your belt.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the reasons why I always refer people to you. I send people to you because I know that you are knee deep in the research. You are so knowledgeable. And I just really respect the work that you're doing. So I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So where can people find you? Give us the rundown of where people can connect with you.
So here on Instagram, I'm Erin Holt Health. That's my website, erinholthealth.com. And then the podcast is the Functional Nutrition Podcast, FUNK_TIONAL. Those are the main places you can catch me.
Yeah. And then I know you meet locally with people one-on-one, but what are some of your online offerings? Like what can people, if they're from afar across the country, how can they work with you?
So I just closed down my private consultations for a while. My business is going through a bit of a restructuring so I can offer more services to more people. I just got to a point where I'm like, oh, there's only one of me. Like, okay. Yeah. All right, I gotta acknowledge my own limitations. So what I'm going to be doing right now, I have different online programs, but what I'm going to be doing is creating group programs where you can access the functional testing, because that's a really important piece to what I do, is that testing. It's like getting the answers and then also giving the education. So it's like, here's what's going on with you. Here's what you need to change, and here's why. And doing it in a group format is just going to be really beneficial, because there's going to be people along the journey with you. So that's one thing to look out for, you know, late summer, early fall. And I'm also going to be cloning myself too. So training other practitioners to do what I do, because like I said, there's only one of me, and there's a lot of people that need help in this department. So that's what's coming down the pike. I don't know. I never know which one it is.
Wherever it's coming from.
Wherever it's coming from, it's coming.
Yeah. Well, that's really exciting to hear how you're growing. And I hope that everyone watching today has a chance to connect with you, and for sure follow you, because you're always dishing out just really great knowledge. So
thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. All right. Enjoy.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining Erin and I today. I think it's just wonderful to chat with women who are really passionate about what they're doing, and who are coming from a place of just being an expert, being highly educated, being committed to educating themselves and staying current on research and the field that they're in. So just a pleasure to talk to Erin. She is just really good at what she does. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I wanted to take a chance to thank our sponsor, which is Frey Skincare. They are sponsoring the spring retreat, Rise.Run.Retreat, and are providing some samples of their skincare products for our swag bags. So giving them a shout out. They are currently having a 40% off sale until the end of April. So from now until the end of April, some of their products are 40% off, and you can use code RUNFARGIRL when you check out. I will put a swipe up link in one of my stories so that you guys can see some of their products. But I shared some of them over the weekend and been using them. They're formulated specifically for athletes, and I really like them a lot. So thanks to them for sponsoring. And then next week, I'm going to be having on Lauren Atwood. She and her husband, Chris, own Otter Creek Homes, and they are a Seacoast-based design and remodel company. And I'm really looking forward to chatting with her about the business that she and her husband have created and what they are doing. So hope you guys will join me next week on Wednesday at noon for another live show of Showing Up. Have a great afternoon, guys, and a fantastic rest